Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Kenya warns demonstrators that they'll be met with a short fuse as at least 6 people are killed in clashes with police during banned anti-tax rallies. Also, the mystery of a possibly missing migrant boat deepens as Senegal denies claims of a Spanish NGO that hundreds of its nationals are still unaccounted for. And their calls for a major ramping up of sustainable investment in Africa as the continent's GDP growth, which is some of the fastest in the world, is projected to return to pre-pandemic levels this year. But first, at least 6 people have been killed in clashes between police and demonstrators at a banned opposition protest that went ahead on Wednesday. Crowds in and around Nairobi demonstrating against new tax hikes had tear gas fired upon them by police. Our Bastian Renwi has more.
Thousands of people took to the street in several towns across Kenya, including cities that are not a part of the strongholds of the opposition, like Eldoret and Nakuru. Everywhere, people were demonstrating against the high cost of living, against the new taxes, and against the government of William Ruto. Listen to some of Raila Odinga's supporters.
We just can't tolerate this. Everything is so expensive. The cost of living is very high. They can't raise taxes. We don't get salary raises. They have no consideration for the poor.
We needed peace. We voted for Ruto thinking we're going to receive peace. But you can see the state went at peace. We are ready for anything.
Shortly after the beginning of these demonstrations, clashes broke out between the police and the demonstrators. The police threw tear gas at the demonstrators and in some cases shot live ammunition in some cities. According to several Kenyan media, they killed several people. The demonstrators threw rocks and started blocking some roads here in Nairobi. Raila Odinga said that he wanted to organize a public meeting in the capital, but he had to cancel due to security issues. Listen to him.
Armed goons have this afternoon descended on Kamkunji grounds and shot indiscriminately into the crowd. Police have used water cannons to disperse those peaceably assembled there. In order to protect our people and avert more injury and loss of lives, we have taken the strategic decision not to proceed with the rally at Kamkunji grounds this afternoon.
The leader of the opposition, Raila Odinga, is yet to announce what will happen next, but he said that the movement will continue to fight against these new taxes and against the government of William Ruto.
Now, Senegal has rejected claims made by a Spanish NGO over the weekend that 300 Senegalese migrants had disappeared at sea on their way to the Canary Islands. The Walking Borders NGO said that the largest of the boats had left from the southern Senegalese town of Kafountine on June 27th. Dakar insists, though, that they were rescued by Morocco. Our Sam Bradpiece has more on this.
Migration experts are somewhat surprised that the government here in Dakar has denied the disappearance of some 300 migrants making their way to the Canary Islands by boat from southern Senegal. The Senegalese Foreign Ministry said that 260 migrants had been rescued in Moroccan waters, although it appears that these migrants were not the same people thought to have left from southern Senegal towards the end of last month. As the westernmost country in mainland Africa, Senegal is a key departure point for many migrants hoping to make their way to Europe. The journey across the Atlantic is thought to be one of the most dangerous migration routes in the world because of the strong currents and large waves. The Senegalese government is often very reluctant to speak about the phenomenon of irregular migration publicly. According to one study, it's received more than 290 million euros since 2005 from the European Union in a bid to tackle the phenomenon. When it comes to those migrants still thought to be missing at sea, search and rescue missions are still underway.
Sam Bradpiece there for us. Now, this year is expected to see African GDP return to pre-COVID levels, projected at 3.7%. That is the second highest rate in the world after Asia. But to keep making the most of its uniquely important place in the global push for more sustainable development, ESG considerations, those of the environment, sustainability and governance, have to play a bigger part in investment on the continent. So for more on how to balance African opportunity with investment needs, I'm joined by the Deputy Director of the OECD's Development Centre. Federica, thanks so much for coming in to speak to me.
Pleasure to see you, Georgia.
Now, first of all, so when we're talking about sustainable investment, what does it look like within the African context? What are we talking about here?
Well, sustainable investment is investment that makes benefits in terms of economy, society, and environment. So it's an investment that in the African case would contribute to reduce vulnerability, for example, by diversifying the economic structure of Africa. Second, it's an investment that would create jobs, quality jobs, notably for the 29 million youth that enter the 16 years of age every year. And thirdly, it's an investment that does not harm the environment, but on the other hand, contributes to climate resilience and to the energy security of Africa. So this is what we define sustainable investment. You can define unsustainable investment, but basically looking at investment that does not create jobs, does not pay taxes, and harm the environment.
Mm-hmm. And so in your latest report, there's a call for more of this sustainable investment. But who are you directing your findings towards? Are you trying to get governments to do more, or are you trying to encourage more investors to look towards the continent?
Well, as someone would say, it takes two to tango. So you need to talk to the government because a lot of the resources that are necessary to create these jobs and to respond to climate change will need to come from public investment. At the same time, government is responsible for regulation and policies that would determine the willingness of investors to go into a country. On the other hand, you also need to engage investors, on one hand, to convince them that there are opportunities there and that sometimes the risk perceptions about Africa are misplaced. And on the other hand, also to convince them that their investment should be aligned with the sustainability objectives that we mentioned before. So the report that we released today, which is jointly produced with the African Union Commission, is called Africa's Development Dynamics, provides you with figures, so the magnitude of how much we need, but also with data and examples about how you can make it on the side of the government and on the side of the private sector.
And those data and examples, do they outline exactly how to get to this goal of more sustainable investment?
Well, when it comes to how you make it happen, this is something that my daughter Anna will always ask me, you produce a lot of analysis, but concretely, how do you make these things happen? And first of all, you need to have a grasp of the magnitude of the needs. And we are estimating that there are about $200 billion per year that are necessary in Africa to achieve the SDGs. Second, you need to see where are the possible sources to finance this. Public sector, you need to increase and improve taxation. Today, African countries only collect 16% of the GDP in terms of taxation. For the OECD, it's 32%. Thirdly, you need to help investors to make the right choices. And this is about opportunities. Africa is a fast-growing economy. It's a demography which is exploding. The average age, not the average age, half of the population is below 19 years of age, and the market is integrating. So why are investors not investing there? They perceive too high risks. They don't realize the opportunities are there. So concretely, what can we do? First, we should work to improve the information available. Second, we should look at the tools that can help investors reduce certain risks. For example, exchange rate risks. And thirdly, we need to strengthen African-owned financial institutions so that they can better direct resources toward the investment needs. In many cases, African governments provide tax incentives and tax breaks that are absolutely useless. They could use those resources to direct investment towards sustainability.
Thanks so much for talking us through all that. Federica Bonelli, the Deputy Director of the OECD's Development Centre.
Thank you, Georgia.
Now, the historical Ethiopian city of Lalibela was occupied in 2021 by soldiers for 5 months during the country's civil war. The conflict left its scars on the ancient heritage site, known for its churches carved out of living rock. But 6 months after a peace agreement was signed, Lalibela is still struggling to recover from the economic impacts of the conflict.
This hotel in Lalibela served as a base for Tigrayan soldiers during their 2-year conflict with federal troops. When they retreated in December 2021,
these are the doors. You can see that they're broken. They broke the handles. The closet is broken too.
Bedding and vehicles were stolen. The hotel lost 250,000 euros. The occupation was not violent, but Lalibella's residents were terrified and felt abandoned.
There is no electricity, telephone.
How do you want me to feel? We had no electricity, no water. We were scared. From one day to the other, I didn't know if I would still be alive.
The COVID pandemic, followed by the war, has shattered the city's tourism-dependent economy. Sheru is a driver and tour guide. Soldiers took over the entire second floor of his hotel.
First 2 weeks it was very hard. I didn't use it, the house, the building, everything wisely until we understand each other, because I live here downstairs. Then finally, when they stay longer and longer, they become cool. And
Sheru is now less dependent on tourism and has turned his rooms into office space. But the city council is trying to entice travelers back.
In Lalibela, we are starting to find peace again. We hope that the government and the institutions will allow Lalibela to become the tourist destination it used to be.
In 2019, before the COVID pandemic and the war, Lalibela had welcomed over 75,000 tourists.
Well, in Sierra Leone, fishermen are struggling to keep up with their traditional ways of life because of dwindling fish stocks. Many accuse foreign trawlers of using irresponsible fishing practices and devastating marine ecosystems. Our Justice Baidu has more.
In the small port of Tumbo, an hour south of Freetown, artisanal fishermen are in despair. Fish is in short supply and incomes are falling.
Well, the situation of fishing is too poor by the community. The fishing program is too poor. Look at the wharf.
Fishermen say fishing trawlers are exhausting fish stocks. They illegally scrape the seabed, overfishing tons of sardines, tuna, and barracuda with no concern for sustainability or the production rate of fish populations.
Doing a lot of activities that deprive even the stock from growing, damaging their nets. So these are all as a result of the illegal fishing that we are talking about. But what they do also at night, they disconnect these VMS, you understand, just for them to have access to enter into the IEZ. So that it's very much difficult for government to trace them.
In response to this growing anger, China, whose trawlers are accused of illegal fishing, has donated a patrol boat to Sierra Leone.
Well, since the launching of that boat, for now, I can say it is not yet useful because getting the boat is one, getting the capacity to run the boats or getting the empowerment to run the boat is another big challenge. Because when we are talking about monitoring territorial waters of a country, this is an activity that should be done within 24/7.
Overfishing is the main threat to food security around Sierra Leone, and an estimated third of all fish caught in West Africa comes from illegal fishing.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.